everyone, thank you for tuning in to Team Forbidden's YouTube page again. It is Andrew the Collector here with a brand new Digimon deck for Royal Knights. A lot of you probably know by now, my specific color is made for green, but I decided to tap into the Royal Knights deck, mainly because I like the aesthetic and gameplay of the deck, but I also like how a lot of the Royal Knights represents each of my friends in our friend group, based on what they like. But I'll get into that as we go on. But for now, let's just go ahead and get right into the deck profile. So for our eggs, we're only running 4 eggs, which is going to be 4 of the only one that we need, obviously, is King Drasil, 7d6. So it has a couple effects. Its first one is breeding your turn. All your Digimon can't Digivolve, which is fine because we don't in this deck anyway. Second is breeding your turn once per turn. When a Royal Knight trait Digimon card would be played, you may reduce the play cost by 4 and further reduce by 1 for each of this card's Digi-Evolution cards. And its last effect is breeding. Start of your main phase, reveal the top card of your Digi-Egg deck and place it underneath it as a Digisource, along with all of your Digimon that on your side of the field with a Royal Knight in its traits. And its inheritable is breeding during your turn once per turn. When an option card with Royal Knight in its traits is placed in the battle area, gain 1 memory. So if you don't know, the main strategy of the Royal Knights is that you basically have this in your breeding area, and you use its effect to reduce the play cost of the Royal Knights that you would play from your hand to your side of the field, basically either making them free or at a very reduced cost to get their on-play effects to further your game. And then with your Omnimon, you basically swing in for 1 fell swoop for game. But we'll get into that as we go on, so let's move on to our main deck. The first card that we're going to look into is Sister Mont Blanc. On play, you trash 1 card from your hand and draw 2. And all turns, this for any of your Royal Knights, this card gains Decoy, which basically means that if any of your red or black Royal Knight monsters or Digimon would get destroyed, you can destroy her instead. But you mainly run her for her first effect to pitch 1 and draw 2. And the same thing can be said for Sister CL, Sister Mont CL. On play, reveal 3 cards of your deck and add 1 card with Royal Knight and its traits among them and trash the rest. So basically another searcher for the deck. You can run a different variety of each of these cards depending on how you structure your deck, but you have to run at least 2. That is definitely mandatory. And speaking of mandatory, our other Digimon that we're running is 3 Mechamon, which is basically a chibi version of Omegamon. Its on-play effect is that you draw 1 card, so basically you play this for 4 costs and then you draw a card, because the one thing that this deck is lacking is draw power, so you definitely want to max out on this guy, but its better use is on deletion. Place 1 Digimon card with Royal Knight and its traits from your hand at the bottom Digi-Evolution source for a King Drasil in the breeding area. So basically the strategy is that while you have King in your breeding area, you summon this, draw a card, and the next turn you swing into your opponent's security stack. Hopefully this will get deleted from the higher DP, which most of the time it will. So that way when it gets deleted, you can put a Royal Knight underneath your King Drasil for further play cost reduce and better effects. So yeah, 4 of these, no less. Now let's get into the Royal Knights. The lowest Royal Knight that we have is Magnamon. I'm only running 3, but you could run 4. Depends on what ratios or what Royal Knights you actually play in. But it's a blocker, which is good on its own. And all turns, when this card would leave the field, you draw a card. And that includes that if you have when you have King Drasil and you use its effect during the breeding area to absorb it under it as a source, you get to draw a card since it's technically leaving the field. And before any of you say that if this card is already underneath King Drasil, but for whatever reason, if it gets removed from it, you do not draw a card. It does not count while it's counted as a Digi-Evolution source. It has to be on its own on the field, and when it would leave the field by going anywhere, you draw a card. You could run 4, like I said, but I prefer 3. It's been a better consistency. And And our last level 4 that we're running is one Porcupamon. On play, delete one of your opponent's level 3 Digimon. This deck's biggest fear is floodgates for of not being able to special summon by effects or being able to reduce the play cost. So you mainly run this to get past those floodgates. Basically, you hard play and then pop one of their floodgates, and you can resume your plays. Our first level 6 Royal Knight is going to be 4 Dynasmon. On play, reveal 4 cards of your deck and add 2 Digimon with Royal Knight in its traits, and then you trash the rest. Like I said before, the one thing this deck is lacking is drop power, so you definitely want to run 4 of this since it's your main searcher. And your turn, when you play another Digimon with Royal Knight in its traits, delete all your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon. So yeah, it's a good board wipe too if you're able to have it out and clear your opponent's board, especially if you're going to get up against Bloomlord or D Brigade or any other rookie rush decks, if those are even a thing nowadays. So yeah, 4 no less. Next up, we're going to have 3 Leopardmon. Its main effect once per turn is that you can play 1 green Digimon or 1 Royal Knight trait from your hand with a reduced play cost of 4. So I would recommend having this out already, and then using that effect next turn to further your board if it's still out. And all turns, when you play another Digimon that is green or Royal Knights in its traits, they all gain blocker. So good for defense for you to stay alive next turn. So definitely run 3 because it is one of the better ones that has a lower play cost to get bodies out on board and to put sources underneath King Drasil. Next up is going to be 2 Ultra Force Veedramon. On play, for each of your Digimon with Royal Knight in its traits, you can trash the top 2 Digi-Evolution cards of one of your opponent's sources. So you basically can use this to basically remove sources underneath your opponent's Digimon. And then once per turn, during your turn, when your opponent plays a Digimon, when you play a Digimon with Royal Knight in its traits, you can return 1 card your opponent controls with no Digi-Evolution sources back to their hand. So good removal of the Digi-Evolution sources. That's mainly what you run him with, so that's why I only run 2 of them. Next, we are running 2 Jessamon. It's on play, spot removal. On play, choose any number of your opponent's Digimon with DP that totals 6,000 and delete them. But for each of your other Digimon that you have, you can add 2,000 to that DP deletion effect. And then all turns for each of your other Digimon with Sistermon or Royal Knight in its traits, all your Digimon gain 1,000 DP. So it provides good buff, but you mainly use it for its on-play stats to spot remove any of your opponent's bodies. And 2 Lord Knightmon. On play, you can summon a Royal Knight from your graveyard, from your trash area. And then once per turn, at the end of your opponent's turn, when your opponent's Digimon attacks, you gain 1 memory for each Royal Knight that you have. So good memory gainer, but you mainly use it for its trash recurability. Now for the one card that clutched me so many games is 3 Alphamon. Its on play is that by placing 1 Digimon with Royal Knight in its traits from your trash to the bottom of this card, Digimon your opponent controls with play cost of 10 or higher cannot attack until the end of their next turn. If you're going up against War Greymon, this is definitely the thing that will help you against that deck the most, or most any decks nowadays. If you definitely need to survive another turn, definitely play this if you have it. And all turns, once per turn, if an effect would remove this card from the field, you can pitch the card underneath it instead. That's mainly what I said about Magnamon. So if this card is underneath it as a source and you use this effect to remove this to save itself, you don't get the effect to draw a card since it's technically not on the field while it's a Digi-Evolution source. So just want to make that clear. But yeah, Alphamon is definitely probably one of the best Royal Knights in this deck, hands down. I would run 4, but it can get a little cloggy despite its good effect, so I definitely prefer running 3 copies. And we're also running 3 copies of Genkomon. It's a blocker, which is always good. And its on-play effect is that without doing its play cost, you can summon a Royal Knight that's under King Drasil to your side of the field, but its on-play effects do not activate. So really good to get more bodies out on board. It does gain its on-play ability. So yeah, that's really good, especially if Alphamon was out and it gets slurped up during your turn. You play Genkomon, play Alphamon again, and you'll be able to survive another turn with Alphamon's effect. Yeah, really good. Plus, it's a blocker. Can't go wrong with 3 copies. Speaking of blockers, we have 2 Craniumon. Like I said, it's a blocker, and on play, it basically becomes unaffected by your opponent's Digimon effects. One of the best blockers that is out there right now, mainly because it's unaffected and your opponent can't spot removal it except for option cards. And end of turn, choose one of your opponent's Digimon to attack, and your opponent must attack with it. So if you have this out and your opponent tries to summon out a Floodgate, like I said earlier in the video, this is another way to spot removal it by forcing them to attack with it, and then you block with it to essentially remove it. So yeah, 2 Craniumon, definitely a really good deck, or a really good card. Next, we're going to have, I'm butchering this name, Kentarosmon. Its on-play effect is that if there is 6 or fewer total cards in both players' security, you gain 3 memory, and then reveal 1 card in your hand, and if it's a yellow, place it at the top of your security stack face down. It's okay. It's not the best one that you want to get out. I'm actually thinking of cutting down to 1 because you don't really get its effect off very much, but I think it's fine at 2. So go ahead and play around the ratio as you see fit. Next is going to be 3 Gallantmon. This is probably one of the better Royal Knights that you are definitely going to want to run. On top of being able to reduce its play cost with King Drasil, you can also use its effect that when you would play this card from your hand, if you have no Digimon, if you control no Digimon, reduce this card's play cost by 2 for every 5 cards in both players' trashes. So essentially, you can play this guy out for free, hands down, if you don't have a lot of sources underneath King Drasil. It has Rush, meaning that it can attack the turn that you play it, and its on-play effect is that delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 or less DP, but if your opponent doesn't have one that can be deleted by this effect, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 13,000 DP or more. So basically a good spot removal, and you can get that effect off when it attacks too. So you play this, use this effect to pop one of your opponent's Digimon, swing at them with it, and then you get that effect again. So if your opponent has 2 Digimon, one with 6,000 or less, and one that's incredibly beefy, you play this, use its effect to pop the one with 6,000 lower DP, swing at their stack, and use its effect to pop the other big guy, and you essentially get 2 spot removals as long as they don't have protection. So definitely run 3 of it. Run 4 of it if you can too, but that's up to you. And then 1 Examon. Examon's on-play effect is suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and that Digimon does not unsuspend during the next unsuspend phase. So good for dealing with blockers or any big guys. And all turns once per turn, when your opponent's Digimon becomes suspended, suspend another one of your opponent's Digimon, or unsuspend this card. The second effect doesn't go off as much as you want, but the first effect is definitely good. But I'm only running 1 of this because it doesn't come up as often as any of the other Royal Knights, but he is definitely still good to have and a really good beefy body. Now for the bread and butter of this deck, your main win condition is 4 Alphamon. Its on-play effect is that you can either delete one of your opponent's Digimon, or play one of each Digimon with Royal Knight in its traits from your breeding area without playing any of their play cost. And when a Digimon is played by this effect in its trash your Digimon in the breeding area, aka King Drasil, and then all of your Digimon gain Rush for the turn. So the way that you win with this deck is that over time you accumulate as many Royal Knights underneath King Drasil as possible, and then you summon out Omnimon with enough play cost reduced, and then special summon all of the Royal Knights out onto your side of the field as possible that were under King Drasil, and they all have Rush. Plus, you get all of their on-play effects that you can. That means that you can get the on-play effect of Gallantmon, you can get Craniummon, Alphamon, Lord Knightmon if you have any cards in your trash area that you want to bring back too, Jessmon, Leopardmon, and Dynasmon, and you get all of their on-play effects if you have them underneath King Drasil. Including if you have an Omnimon underneath there and you summon it out, you can use its first effect to just pop one of your opponent's Digimon right off the bat, and then swing all of them into your opponent's security stack to just one-shot them for game. That's basically the win condition of this deck. Otherwise, you are basically just swinging into your opponent's security stack with Omekamon or the Sistermons. So yeah, definitely you need to run 4 of these at all times, because you want to see this card in your hand as soon as possible, so that way if you accumulate enough sources underneath King Drasil, you have enough to swing in for game. Off into the tamers. The only tamers that we run are 3 Marcus from BT13. It's a memory setter, which is always good for this deck, because even though that we reduce the play cost with King Drasil as much as possible, you can being choked is definitely still a bitch. And you can also use it to, like I said, to spot remove any of your opponent's floodgates, because when you play it, you suspend it, and you basically minus 3,000 DP for one of your opponent's Digimon for on their field. So basically activate this, suspend it, and then pop one of their floodgates. That's the main use of this card, as well as being a memory setter. And the last card that we have in our deck is the option card, which is Royal Knights of the Purge. You play it and you draw 1 card, and then place one of your Royal Knights in your hand underneath King Drasil. And then its delay effect is that you can you can trash this card and play 1 Royal Knight from underneath King Drasil to your side of the field without using its play cost, but you do not get its on-play effect. Definitely good for that, and to put more sources underneath King Drasil, as well as draw power, run no less than 4. Plus, with King Drasil's inheritable effect, you can basically reduce this play cost by 3. Instead of making it a 6 cost, you can make it a 3 cost, which is even more memory efficient. So yeah, that is it for the Royal Knights deck profile. If you have any questions about this, feel free to leave it in the comments section down below. It's definitely one of the better meta decks right now. But it can get a little pricey, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell down below for notifications, and we'll catch you guys later.